If you don't move behind the music, you go to see a doctor because something's wrong with you.
Any kind of work that they did, they always had music, which was more or less of a Negro and black influence, I'd say, in this country when they began developing jazz.
But it's American. It's truly an American art form.
See, without the bass, there wouldn't be no band. You had to have that feeling, or the people would insult you if you wasn't playing the bass right.
We have tried to record and remember our youth and eulogize the wonderful people that came before us.
Chester's basically New Orleans bass playing. The way the old masters played, playing the way they played in the beginning.
What's the best thing? You're enjoying yourself. You're getting kicks out of what you're doing. And just as happy as if I had $1 million. Because I tell you, your ear, that's your money.
And it's amazing and it's very gratifying when we go abroad, that the one truly thing that everybody's concerned with is jazz. And they accompany the way we're playing. I came to the Soviet Union a few years ago with Miss Pearl Bailey, and my bass got broken. And everybody in Moscow knew Milton, the judge. And when I came with my bass broken, every bass player in Moscow was offering me the courtesy of using his bass. It's just amazing what truly an American art form does. If we could just open this world and let everybody see what jazz is like and how we get along, because it is an auditory art. We don't see each other, we hear each other, and we respect each other by how we sound. And that goes for the entire world. I can't speak Chinese, but if you put the notes out and give me some blues, we'll play it together. And this is what the world is all about. And I'm very happy to be a part of this great musical society. I've been in the band 16 years. And Danny had been in the band with me, Cap Calloway's band. Anybody from New Orleans, any musician that came up and needed some help could always come to his house. Like he said, you could eat. He fed so many musicians, he really did. And anybody in New York can tell you that Lou Barker and Danny Barker were like a salvation. Their house was like a settlement house. And he was really, to this day, he's my dearest friend.
When you play jazz, New Orleans jazz, you got to give that music something special. You got to give a lilt, a beat, a momentum. You see, and we're used to doing that thing, you know? Doing that thing, well, you got to, you know, you do the scratch. So you got to pluck that bass or play that instrument a certain way, a certain lilt. Nobody's in a hurry, all that running and jumping. No, you take it easy. With somebody you got a feeling for, where you do that thing, you know? You understand it? You know what I'm talking about? For sure. See the expressions on a young lady's face and the old lady's face. Smile. Got that feeling, you know? Doing the scratch. Maybe she could give you an example of how to do the scratch. Huh? Come on, do the scratch. Let me show you how to do it. Get up. Get up. Come on. Loosen your arms.
I don't know what I'm doing.
You're in a thing.
anything. But they say it'll rain as usual. Almost every afternoon lately it's been raining. And I think we'll have a nice day. Well, hello. Hello, Chester.
Let's fly down or drive down to New Orleans. That city, so pretty, full of historic scenes. Yeah, beautiful babies.
Job opportunities were probably limited very much for almost anybody, especially the darker shades of the colored people here, and they had to take any kind of a job they could get. It's always been considered a good time city here, the city that care forgot. It was a seaport where a lot of sailors came in. There was always a lot of fun going on, and they always needed music for those events too, the parties and the dancing naturally. At least a few of them did take up music because they did have an opportunity in that field. Every corner saloon would have a little trio or 4 or 5 pieces if they could afford it. The white insurance companies would not insure any of the black people, so they had to get their own insurance organizations, so they'd join a club, pay dues every month to furnish music and expenses of the funeral. Of course, all of these clubs had to have a dance, and they'd have a parade at least once in the summer, sometimes a couple of times. They'd have these dances quite often on a Saturday night, the day of the dance, and they'd put a 6 or 7 piece band up on the truck or the wagon. They would travel around and stop at every corner in that neighborhood. And the fact that a lot of sailors came in trying to have a good time, just like they also had the legalized prostitution here in the district in Storyville, which employed a lot of piano players and a few bands and the cabarets. All of those things helped create jobs for the musicians, of course, too. The fact that it was a good time city. Even like Louis Armstrong, when he started out, he had to do jobs like working on a coal cart and delivering coal and all sorts of delivery jobs, anything at all to get a few pennies that he could live on until he could make it in music, which he finally did, of course, in a big way.
Need work, bad, a family man, all about $1. They're paying 50 cents a pound now, trying to make $1 to survive.
This is a good time town, a 24-hour town. And in the case of black people, like, you got a paint job, well, to escape, to do this hard work, because one time, black people in this town were relegated to doing all the manual labor to clean up, to mop it up, we experts on detergents, soap and powders and brooms and mops and all that business, see? So they may look a little tacky, but most of them know how to keep clean. Here's a chance for you to be celebrated playing jazz. You're something special in New Orleans when you play jazz. And Chester was something special playing jazz. See, he's been playing all his life, and he sets an example for other kids to see. Mr. Chester. I remember he had on knee pants when I first saw him. I was very small, and he had a bass, go and play a job. So he's been playing a long time, you know.
So Chester realized that he could make a living at it, and one of the few people that made his entire living at that. Many other musicians at times had to take another manual labor job. People were cigar makers or...
And there's plasters, and they worked at it, but they played music for pleasure. Played music for pleasure, and they had to the homestead, you know, to keep the tables going and the pots going, extra money. They do it today. And so music was for kicks too, you know. They call it fun money. So you can find an excuse to start a party here quicker than any place I've ever been. See? This is one of the few places in the world I know where they beg you to eat, and if you refuse, they get violent and mad with you. But here they start off with food, you know. Let's eat.
And then you put your onion, your garlic, your celery, your bell pepper, and your green onions, and you let it fry some in your roux, and then you drop your shrimps in, and you let it cook till it get done. And that's what shrimps do.
Difference between Mr. Zardis and me was the fact that I had an opportunity to get an education. So we had a whole generation of young black kids that were really being reminded every moment of the day by their parents, we're trying to make this better for you. That's the reason we left the South. And we're trying to make a better opportunity for you, and you better pay attention.
Babe, come here, baby.
Smell like something in the front.
It was unusual. I think he went to maybe the 7th grade. I know Jelly Roll Morton only went probably to the 5th grade. Well, that 5th grade didn't really hold some of them back. They learned enough in 5 years.
And our parents now, just coming from the South, seeking a better way, they were concerned that their children should get a better education.
I'm the only one in my family that played music. Yeah, I love music. I had a pretty bass. It's about so hard. And you talk about loud, boy, that bass has some tone. It's boom, 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 boom. There's something way down 2 blocks from now. My daddy was a shoemaker. Making shoes all he did. That's what it. We never had to buy no shoes. He make up all our shoes. Wonderful man. Had mustache like that. Big long black mustache. We wear that like that. Pretty teeth in his mouth. Always pretty teeth. Every time you catch him, he got a smile. You see them gold teeth shining that way down next corner down there. Wonderful man. My brother. Well, she was working in the French market now, but I haven't seen him in quite a while. So, at least to ask him where he work at. I know he might be working in the same place. Telemac, that's his nickname. Hey! Mr. Chester. Some of the boys know me. Yes, no, I just will hustle around like I've been doing it, so. But you see, I like to do what I'm doing now because I makes money, I saves money. I don't do like fools do, make a barrel of money today and throw it away tonight. Me and my wife, we live like people. Then used to sell bread in a wheelbarrow. Go down there and get the bread by Peter Van Griffin's bakery around there. And go bring people the bread, knock on the door, boom, 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 boom. How many want 2, 3, 1? They give me 3. And she put 3 in the door. I mean, there's good people around here. It's good. I hate to come around here. The worst makes me feel bad. I'm glad I got this woman. This is my mother. This is my mother. This man here used to have he's a carpenter. And he had a horse and wagon. Well, I used to drive his horse and wagon most all the time. And then another fellow used to do carpenter work for him, 2 of them. He tell me, Chester, why don't you go so-and-so? I said, I take the horse and wagon and hitch him up and go everywhere he send me. I'm gone. And Mr. Arnold, fellow about your size, with a little stouter than you, with a big, big belly like that. Your belly ain't big enough now, but you gotta eat some more beans and rice. Come here, baby. But he was a gentleman like you. See, my stepdaddy, he was a carpenter, and he always was doing something. That's what caused me today, putting nails in my house, or doing something to my house, because I taken after my dad. And after I learned how to play music, well, that was more better, more easy, more money, and everything else. So I thank the good Lord today. Me, I was glad I met that lady. That's right. I love the bass. Sometimes I'll be playing the bass. She'd be there sleeping. I'd be rubbing the bass across her belly. Boom, 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 boom. What you doing, Jess? I said, I'm playing the bass. She said, oh, put that bass down. Oh, boy. It makes me feel good. I play the bass. That's what that is. I made a plenty of money. This. I bought me 3 houses. The money I made off of learning music. In your hand, huh? Yes, sir. Comes in my hand. And I appreciate the good Lord up there. Thank him.
We have tried to record and remember our youth and eulogize the wonderful people that came before us, that we learned so much from, and we've been lucky to make a very fair living out of this because we learn so much from them.
That lady, see that lady right there with that apron? That's my wife. See? And I just treats everybody nice. So that's the way you all got to do. Treat people like they're people. And after you do that, God will bless you.
He told his disciples, Peter and John, to go into Jerusalem where they would meet a man carrying a pitcher. Okay, I want you to pay attention, Jamon. Turn around. All right. Jesus knew what was about to happen. Joshua.
That his work was about to
His work was about to end.
So beautiful, so beautiful. All that dignity. All of the dignity. All of the moral.
Some Sundays we have church, it be so good, and the people be feeling so good, they don't want to go home. We start song, we start clapping, and the music start playing, and we just start all over again. Don't want to leave and go home. Yeah, we have great church at our church.
He died. He died till the sun stopped shining. He died till the moon dripped away in blood. He died. He's a fountain open. in the house of David for sins and for uncleanness. Sinners plunge beneath the flow and lose all our guilt and stain. Can you say yes? Did you hear me say yes? Come on and say yes. Yeah. On the way. He said, who gonna roll the stone away? Hallelujah. The stone is too heavy. The man is still asleep.
Especially that beat, that infectious beat that they dance to or march to, which inspires them, keeps them from getting tired. Even in the march, they can march all day sometime and follow a parade for hours without even thinking about all the walking they're doing because they enjoy it so much.
Enjoy your meal, enjoy this beautiful weather, and have a safe trip home. Thanks again, folks. Bye-bye, Blackbird. Thank you. Thank you. A lot of the bands that you see in the club, Chester Zardis, Preservation Halls, all of them have done their thing out on these grounds, and we feel honored to be able to keep the tradition alive in their footsteps by coming out, and hopefully one day, who knows, somebody might know us.
Yeah, right, right.
does for a living.
For a living? He plays that bass. That's his living.
Because I figured that bass was first. If I go rehearsal with a band, well, I'm a rehearsal. It ain't gonna be no mess up. I see guys used to give me $10, $15 just to come rehearsal with the band, just so they can make recording. Well, I don't know what they be getting, but I know they be getting a good sum of money. Some there give me $25, $30. Just that's for you. So, okay, thank you, man.
The word bass means bottom. Architecturally, it's the lowest part of a building. Musically, it's the lowest voice in the orchestra. It's the lowest human voice in the choir. It is supporting. It should be identifying. It's made to support the rest of the singers. And it should be strong, like architecturally. If the bass is strong, the building won't stand. So consequently with a bass, I tried it, and this is what in jazz, with the great jazz bass players like Mr. Zardis and like Wilmer Bro, like Pop Foster, like Bill Johnson, like the great bass player that was with Paul Whiteman, Brown. These great players played identifying the band. Played bass, and the band could play right on top of that. Everybody know what it was. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1. Then when the bands begin to, the instrumentalists begin to, this is when the band is playing. So you need to be very plain to identify the chord, and the trumpets and the trombones and the saxophones all playing. Now when one individual begins to play, and he's soloing and creating his own style, the bass should also support him by playing 4 beats. Different instrumentalists like different sounds on the bass in the 4 beats. Some people like what we call pillar point, where you play, if you got a B flat chord and you got an F chord, a B flat chord has got a B flat in it, and an F chord has got a B flat in it. So now for those 2 chords, I can play a pill, what we call a pill note. The pill note would be B flat. E flat. Some bass, some instruments is like for you to build like a rocking chair for them. It's 1 in 5 or 1 in 4. The tonic and the subdominant or the dominant. Then some like. Something like you to run the scale for them, so they know it. If it's a B flat, they want you to play the whole B flat scale for them. That's diatonically. And as we say in bass, everybody plays, the saxophone plays a dozen courses, the trumpet player plays a dozen courses, the trombone plays a double courses, a dozen courses, and everybody plays, and when you've been playing for 20 minutes, a half hour, then they turn to you and say, you got it. So you've got to have enough stamina to take your solo. So whatever it is, you try to think of something you can be creative about. If it was my solo, I I might remember what Paul Forster did, what Mr. Zardis did with that slap bass, so I might do something like this. That's the way they did it. I say, well, maybe I can do a little bit of that.
Backbone of the band. It's a pivot of the band. That's right there. It's number one, bass. The big, heavy, fat note he's hitting there, you know, that's the foundation. If you ain't got no foundation, the house is gonna collapse.
Because lots of finger bowls, some of them be too close in there. You got to put a piece in there to raise it out enough for you to get up. You see? Now like that's too close for me now. So I can't get a good hold to play like I want to play.
This bass that we're talking about primarily is one of the things that set this truly American jazz form in the right paces. It's really important. The bass is important because it is identifying.
You got your E string right here, right here. Yeah.
And because guys that preceded me, like Mr. Zardis, and they concocted the idea of picking this bass. And this is what I've tried to do from watching Mr. Zardis when he played.
Chester always talks about, emphasizes the importance of tone, that you must have a beautiful tone. That's one of the most important things to him and to everybody, and especially in the New Orleans music. To get that beautiful tone and a big tone that would carry throughout a dance hall or outdoors when you're playing, say, a parade or a dance outdoors at a picnic.
The harder you bear on the string, that's the more tone you get off of your instrument. A whole lot of people don't understand. And some people just put their hand on there like that. That's not everything. You see marks on my fingers? They've been there for a long time. You might have heard talk about it, Hellfire trumpet player. Well, he had his band out, and we was on. It wasn't no truck we had, a mule and a wagon, you know, and the boys tied them wheels to keep them two bands together. And the tone partner was coming out there. You'd be surprised. So that band got mad because everybody was giving me the credit, and the people was enjoying what I was doing. See?
Yeah, do your work up there, do your see, lots of times I tune the bass up, but it don't be tuned up to my ears. You know, you got to tune the bass to your own ears. When your string is too high, you don't get the slap like that. Your strings are just right now. Yeah. You make treble. I make treble most of the time, but they're too low now for me.
Now, the young bass players are coming to me, Judge, how do you do that, you know? And I'm delighted to show them because I want them to do it. I want them just like I took what Mr. Zardis did over here. took it and did. See, I want to see some young guys come on and do double that, and this is what we call progress.
New York, in 1930, the majority of the bass players played tubas. Bass tubas, big, beautiful, big brassy, or big silver tubas. That was a part of the rhythm section. Duke Ellington hired Wellman Broad, and he played the bass powerful like Chester does, and gave the music a whole new sound. It's more resonant, and it hits you in here, the bass fiddle, which a tuba doesn't. Tuba hits you here, but that vibration of that bass hits you in here, and you can feel it on the bandstand. It shakes the chairs. So for some reason, everybody started changing over to bass fiddle, and that was it.
All the other bass players wanted to copy that. They saw what it did to the band, and everybody liked it. That's why they all wanted to learn that too. And it just seemed to have the natural quality of swinging a band better than the tuba did.
Louis Russell had Pop Foster, who was a giant on the bass, and Wellman Broad was a giant. And they both, Pop Foster, most so he started teaching the bass players how to carry the bass, how to take care of it, all about the bridge. That's around 1930, and like in 1935, everybody know, all the bass players know all about basses. Now I'm here, there, and I'm looking and listening, and they had been, didn't know nothing about a bass 5 years before. Now they know all about a bass.
But they all wanted to learn bass, and they began taking lessons from both Pops and Wellman Broad to learn the string bass. But the first one, by the way, that Danny mentioned of all the great bass players he'd heard down here was Chester Zardis, and setting the style and setting the model, you might say, for all the other bass players in the world. And he couldn't understand why the New York players were that, you might say, amateurish compared to the New Orleans bass players. still taking pictures.
Yeah, he likes that. He's crazy about that. Well, I mean, whatever you like, I think you might as well enjoy it and get the best out of it. But after all, we don't live to be no 99, 100 years old,
Monroe and Pops Foster, since they were in New York, got more publicity than Chester did. But Wellman really took up bass later than Chester did. And yet, by being with Ellington, a very popular band that recorded and played at the Cotton Club, became world famous, had more influence, I think, in the very beginning, in the early 30s, of creating the demand for string bass in the New York and in the rest of the country probably than Chester did, but Chester was on that bass before Wellman.
Hear you over there. Illaba, chérie, comment ça va? Illaba, chérie. Tu mon cher ami, mon guido de cuisine cook inside. Mon manger bien, mon bois du pain, pour laisser bout flanquer. Et là-bas, chérie, comment ça va? Mademoiselle Joséphine, s'il a resté dans la rue de fille, la glace était hors d'envie, cassé son petit jambé, et là-bas, she's a fine chick, et là-bas, chérie, comment ça va? Now we will go to Africa, Nigeria. The rainforests of Nigeria, where the crocodile and the baboon play a dangerous game. Winner take all. I will sing this for you in Swahili. Aka raka, kuna shamama, gonke got no bone. Aka raka, kuna shamama, gonke got no bone. Aka raka. Kuna shamama, gonke got no bone. Aka raka, kuna shamama, I'll leave you alone. Back in America, Ilama, let's fly down or drive down to New Orleans. That city, so pretty, full of historic scenes. Yeah, beautiful babies, I'm gonna take you and parade you up and down and around Bourbon Street. We gonna go in all the hot spots, drink that road with the big shots, down, down, down on Bourbon Street.
Chester, of course, started playing in bands soon after he started on music in 1915. By 1920, he was playing with some of the best bands, some of the greatest musicians that have ever lived in New Orleans, notably Buddy Petit. Unfortunately, they never got to record. It didn't become nationally famous because they didn't want to leave the city. They liked to stay here with their family, and they liked the food, the gumbo and the red beans and rice that they all rave about, which we had yesterday at the party with Chester.
Here's a chance for you to be celebrated playing jazz. You're something special in New Orleans when you play jazz. And Chester was something special.
How you doing there, King? Oh, yeah, what you say, man? How's everything? Everything's low. How's my boy? Oh, they all doing all right. That's good. Yeah, he's doing all right. That's good enough. I seen him there today. He did that at me. Oh, yeah. One gone. I said, I'll catch you. Boy, I got to this thing. Oh, yeah. You can take it. Yeah, you know. He's got a little harmonica he's been playing, you know? Oh, no, boy. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
No. Right.
And as I was warming up, Mr. Nelson said, "You've got a new horn." I said, "Yeah, well, Clark Terry just sent me this horn." And he said, if I didn't like it, just to send it back. And Mr. Nelson says,
And I told him it's not the horn, it's the man behind the horn.
true words never been spoken. That's exactly right. I wanted to get that documented.
Red beans and rice. And garlic chicken.
All right. Well, I'm going to obviously be on trumpet, Wendell Brunius, Dr. Michael White on the clarinet, the great Lewis Nelson on trombone, the immortal Danny Barker on the banjo, Stanley Stevens on the drums, and our distinguished guest of honor, Mr. Chester Zardis on the bass. Yeah. Good lineup, and hopefully we're going to get some good music today. All right.
Actually, in the old days, they used to call them lawn parties. And they'd have a band, and they'd sell drinks and food, too, and usually charge maybe 15 cents admission. And they had these parties, very popular. Some places would run them every night. And other people, they used them almost like a rent party that they would have, say, in Harlem or Chicago, to pay the rent. Some people would run a lawn party when they wanted to raise money once a month when their rent was due. But of course, this is just more like a picnic in a way, too. There's a big lawn with grass. But the parties of all descriptions were very popular in New Orleans, of course, and have been all the time, and still quite a few go on.
We got garlic chicken for you today, Mr. Rose.
And after all is said and done, to find that I'm the lucky one, I can't believe that you're in love with me, oh baby.
with Chester now for about 5 years. And every moment of it has been enjoyable. Short bands, large bands, trios, whatever. Fantastic. It keeps me alive. Keeps me going. When it goes the wrong way, you say, nope, like this. Keeps me in place. Very enjoyable. Oh.
Japanese people gave me that horn. All right, I'll make a medley. I'll start on My Mother's Eyes first. One chorus, then go to Whisper. Okay.
How did the music sound to you?
Well, very good. It sounds all right.
Tell me
Considering it's outdoors now, too, it doesn't sound thin or anything. It sounds good and full. This is the first day of April, is it? It's April Fool's Day. Yeah, let's hope nobody fools you. They stop off and the band doesn't play anything.
pretty soon.
Well, a lot of times Chester will get there over an hour before the job starts to be sure that his bass is all in shape and tuned up and the right strings and everything adjusted and be ready to play and be right on the job trying to please the public.
may be black, so, but I'm somebody.
This is one more occasion that the real origin of jazz is being taken seriously. Thing that Jelly Roll first informed me and the world about, and he brought it all back to the city where it really happened, and it couldn't have happened anywhere else because this was the town where Creole culture expressed itself in America. It was the only city where people of black origin had money for music lessons. It was the only city where there was a long continued possibility for black musicians to work together in orchestras, actual orchestras. There were black composers who had their works published in Paris, but more important, there were bands in every neighborhood that had a long continuity and that represented the spirit of the free colored people of New Orleans. And Zardis is first and foremost a neighborhood musician. He's never wanted to leave the town because he has the most delightful life and has had the most delightful life in the neighborhood. When he was a kid, you know, he talks all about the parades. He was a second liner of note. Music and dance and socialization and a certain amount of real black independence all came together in this city, as in nowhere else in America. And Zardis is a true, one of the oldest living representatives of that. The musicians who shaped the new orchestral techniques, we know their names. We know their names, and Zardis is one of the names. And he's still there. He's still there showing us how the darn stuff happened. I knew Pops Foster, who was contemporary. Pops I used to work with in New York on many shows. He told me, I guess Chester had the same experience. He said it was like being in heaven. He said all those women, they loved us jazz musicians, and they took care of us. And on weekends, we had a party that lasted from Friday night until Monday, and they would pour the whiskey in, and we had a ball. And of course, Chester grew up under Pops. I think Pops was a little older, but they were competing. I mean, Pops is the first of the jazz bass players, as we all know. But Chester was his early rival. But this was a way up, you see, for all those folks. It was one of the main avenues for blacks to rise in the economic and the class system. That was terribly, terribly important. Those young, wild kids in the streets were ahead of their parents in that particular the way. They saw it. And they saw that there was plenty of work, and then as New Orleans amusement industry increased in its power, then there was really big money. And then, of course, then they shot out all over the world. But Chester stayed home. And I think he stayed home because he was a true Creole. He loved his coffee just right, black, real Caribbean coffee. And he lived elegantly in one of those wonderful old-time shotgun houses with the grill work all along the top. And when you went into Chester's parlor, you were someplace that was refined and charming. He didn't want to leave that. He didn't want to leave his hundreds of relatives that sprangled out over the whole of the city Creole area, and didn't want to leave the security of his big family and of being a man in the first truly independent black community that existed in America. New Orleans is our Caribbean town, and the New Orleans musicians were the voice of it from way back. And Chester is still a living representative of its incredible verve and refinement, in truth. Because in New Orleans, they were really collectively improvising. It's the first time that any orchestra with all those varied instruments, all the varied horns, all, strings, zithers, drums, idiophones, and an orchestra of that complexity improvised. Every person was improvising, and yet it was a collective whole. I mean, they knew each other, they knew the music, they knew what it had to say, and you have collective polyphony and polyrhythm happening in the same place. It never had happened before. And there was Chester coming up in his knee pants, joining this thing right at its roots, and becoming a member of this thing in its inception. Naturally, it was a golden time for him. And he, of course, like all blacks, resented all the injustice and all these things that we are trying still to resolve and must resolve. But the other thing was that he had so much in his own community that was simply wonderful, that to a degree compensated for the dark and tragic side of every black person's life. And so he mounted on that bass, which was full of verve for him as a roan stallion is for a cowboy. And he's been writing it ever since and making us all happy. But he's inspired as a Creole. He speaks Creole. His whole temperament is Creole. He would be perfectly at home in Port-au-Prince or in Martinique, anywhere the Creole culture is alive. Chester Zardis would be at home. And it's that delicacy you feel in that bass. The generations of Africa poured into a bottle of Creole rum. One thing that's amazing from the historical point of view is that the bass came into the city, and blacks first played it with a bow, and then they played it with a rhythmic bow, but soon they were using it like an earth bow from Africa, where you would be slapping the bowstring, they use it like two Bushman boys playing on a musical bow. They were taking liberties. They were making it buzz and grunt and do all kinds of sounds, because Africans don't like pure tone. They like sounds with an edge on it. They like gutsy sounds. They like sounds with a changing tone quality, especially in the rhythm section. You know, they put vibrators and things under the drum head, so they'll have a zzz sound as well as make a clean beat. And the African thumb piano has little rattles on each of the prongs, so it'll not only say ding, it'll say ding, ding, and that's the spirit in which they took over the bass. They turned it from produced pure romantic tone in the hands of a European, and made it bark, bite, growl, and jump like another member of the rhythm section. That's part of the genius that's part of the process that Chester participated in. What Chester does with such confidence, such ease, the melonist never goes away from him. And yet he's being so complicated. I'm having to try, because he's been playing with all these giants all his life. I mean, otherwise he's been speaking Creole. He's been speaking Creole. Everybody else has been trying to speak it in Middle Westernese or Harlemese or something. To forget that Creole is the bass line of jazz. You can't go away from that. All the good tunes are Creole songs. It's wonderful that a true working class, self-educated, self-taught musician is being celebrated here, Mr. Zardis. We've long had the idea that music was something you learned from notes and then played. But music is older than that, and art is older than that. And we're just now beginning to realize that the history of our nonverbal musical heritage is handed down from person to person. Is the big American story. Our composers are just trying to catch up with our alley musicians, with our folk musicians, our mountain people, and people like Chester Zardis, and then people of New Orleans. And it's especially true in the case of jazz, which was an enormous revolution. I think it's equivalent to the discovery of the atom or something. I mean, collective improvisation never occurred before at that level. And to look back to those incredibly important heights of achievement that occurred between 1900 and 1930 among the musicians of New Orleans, and they're the people that learned from them. It's like looking back at maybe the best thing that happened in culture in the 20th century, certainly the most influential thing. And in that look, we can learn to be better artists, better people, and certainly better jazz musicians. And when you see Chester and his friends playing this movie, and it just breaks my heart. I mean, to see that it's still alive and that we can really learn from them. And it's enormously important, it seems to me, for blacks to realize that they have such important artistic ancestors, and that they don't have to go to our white schools of artistry or take the white road. They have an enormously wide, rich Afro-American highway to travel that's theirs. All they have to do is step out on it and not be embarrassed. Because they are. New York Times this week, they have exhibits about African history and art all over the town. And I don't think there's one word in there about black work songs or black folk tales or anything like that. There are enormous tributes to Zora Hurston, who's the novelist and the compiler of black, but not to the tradition, which is out there running on every street corner in Harlem and Brooklyn. And it's out there with the break kids. It's out there. And Chester stands for the very peak of that. He's his living history. But he's not interested in that. He's interested in playing some more and doing it again. Just like every artist, doing it some more, making it better, making more other people happy. Oh. Nice that such people are being filmed and made much of. If we do enough of it, we might turn into a pretty nice bunch of people in this country. It's the only thing worth doing. If we don't learn how to do it, we're going to lose it all, It'll be covered over by junk.
How's about a G?
does it.
And you have it too. Oh, you're snapping it? Get back some. I don't like it close. He's taking me or Chad?
What?
I don't know. He's taking.
It's pretty much hot now.